Hi, my name is John Sequeira. I attended NC State University from 1997 to 2001. I graduated in May of that year and moved up to New York City in June for a job on the 81st floor of Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. At around 8:46 that morning, an airliner manned by terrorists slammed into our building intentionally around 10 floors above where I sat, kicking off an hour-long journey down the stairs. Once we were guided to the stairwell, we made our way from floor 81 to 67 in a pretty quick pace. The stairwells were not yet packed with other people, but on the 67th floor, I ran into my boss, Mike, and we compared notes of what we had seen. He had just been in our office and told me that it was devastated and just destroyed. And we were ready to make our way down the stairs because everybody else in our office, according to Mike, was already ahead of us. But before we left, we could hear people in the hallways of the 68th floor. And we decided to go upstairs and let them know that this stairwell was open and that this was a way out. Once we got to the hallway of the 68th floor, we saw that the group we had heard was not the only group there, and so behind that group was another group, and behind that group was yet another, until we happened upon an office. And through glass doors, we saw that there were people standing there, seemingly not really doing anything or making any efforts to evacuate. We banged on the windows and the doors to get into that office, and once we did, we yelled at everybody to evacuate and told them what we knew, because maybe we thought everybody wasn't aware of the scale of what was happening. And then we realized that they were standing there not moving, not because they didn't want to escape, but because one of their office workers was a wheelchair user. And in her motorized wheelchair, the method of getting out of the building wasn't clear. So we offered our help, and we were guided to an emergency wheelchair that was much lighter and easier to maneuver that had been installed in that office during the bombing that took place in 1993. And so we grabbed the emergency wheelchair, helped our new friend into that, and moved towards the stairwell. Once we arrived in the stairwell, it had become packed with other people who also were trying to evacuate, and found that that was one of the very few ways out. And so moving down the stairs was quite slow going from the 67th floor to probably around the mid-40s, when we were met by first responders, firefighters, who were making their way up the building with gear and their suits and just carrying sheer exhaustion and the look of somber fear on their face. We then realized that this was much more serious than even we thought. And at that time, we were offered to take a break and move out of the stairwell onto what seemed like a safer space in the mid-40s of the building, at which point I called my father to tell him where I was, and he, in very short form, just told me to get out as quickly as possible. So we headed back to the stairwell and continued our way down until we happened upon I want to say it was the lower 10 floors, where it was completely dark, and we were walking in knee-deep water from the sprinkler system of 110 stories collecting towards the bottom of the building. We followed firefighters who were helping us out of the building, and realized that the original path that they used to come up the stairs was now blocked, presumably by the debris from the collapse of Tower 2. And so after a few moments of trying to identify what the best path to escape was, we were able to make our way into the lobby. The lobby was completely destroyed, with turnstiles blown off of their bases and impaled in the walls, floor-to-ceiling plate glass windows completely destroyed, and and a silence of the typical activity that we've seen in the lobby, but coupled with the distant sound of sirens and radios from first responders getting messages from their control centers. We were told to evacuate in any way we could, and so my boss, the woman who we had helped out, and I exited outside through a broken window and made our way to the West Side Highway. Shortly after our exit, Tower 1 of the World Trade Center began to collapse with us a mere block or two away. And we made our way up the West Side Highway, running, trying to escape the cloud of smoke and debris, taking refuge behind a news van and my boss underneath a fire engine. Once the air dissipated and cleared, we made our way up to the boundary set by first responders and media. That was now the boundary of what was beginning to be called Ground Zero. That day, the events, our involvement in it, shifted my priorities in life to focus on family and friends and acts of service, and ultimately led me to the realization that we are most fulfilled when we serve others.